Characteristics of polynomial functions. In this lesson, you are going to look at the characteristics of polynomial functions and what they mean. Let's start with some basic terminology. Degree of an equation. If you look at an equation and find the variable that has the largest exponent value, that exponent value explains or tells you what the degree of the equation is. For example, if we have the equation x to the exponent 3 minus 2x, the degree of the equation is 3. Here's a question for you. What is the degree in this equation? Negative x to the exponent 4 minus 2x to the exponent 3 plus x squared plus 2x. If you guessed 4, I bet it wasn't a guess because you've got it right. Well done. Odd or even degree. Now, once you've determined the degree of the equation, the next step is to determine if this number is odd or even. Just to remind you, if you divide a number by 2 and the remainder is 0, the degree is even. But if the remainder is 1, the degree is odd. For example, we found the degree in this equation to be 3. 3 divided by 2 leaves the remainder of 1. This is an odd degree. Here's a question. Is the degree in this equation odd or even? Negative x to the exponent 4 minus 2x cubed plus squared plus 2x. You probably all figured out that 4 is an even number. Since 4 divided by 2, the remainder is 0. Another job well done. Now, the leading coefficient. If you look at the number that is in front of the variable with the highest degree, this can either be a positive number or a negative number, and this is called the leading coefficient. For example, 4x to the exponent 3 minus 2x, x cubed is the variable with the highest degree, so our leading coefficient would be positive 4. Here's a question. What is the leading coefficient of this equation? Negative 2x to the exponent 4 minus 2x cubed plus x squared plus 2x. Since x to the exponent 4 is the variable with the highest degree, the coefficient is negative 2. Number of turning points. What is a turning point? A turning point is the point at which the graph changes direction, either from an interval of increase to an interval of decrease, or from an interval of decrease to an interval of increase. A polynomial of degree n has at most n minus 1 turning points. It may not have this many, but this is as much as it can have. In our example, 4x cubed minus 2x, n is 3, so at the most this could have 2 turning points. The polynomial has degree n, therefore it can have at most n minus 1 turning points. N is equal to 3, therefore it can have at most 2 turning points. And the question, what is the maximum number of turning points this graph can have? Negative 2x to the 4 minus 2x cubed plus plus x squared plus 2x. 4 minus 1 is 3. The maximum number would be 3. the number of zeros. What is a zero, you ask? You may have encountered the term zero by a different name, perhaps the term root or the x-intercept. And this is the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. The value of y would be 0. A polynomial function of degree n may have up to n distinct zeros. So, a polynomial function of odd degree must have at least one zero. A polynomial function of even degree may have no zeros. Let's look at our example. 4x cubed minus 2x. N is equal to 3, so it can have up to 3 zeros. And our question, what is the maximum number of zeros this graph can have? Negative 2x to the exponent 4 minus 2x cubed plus x squared plus 2x. It can have 4 zeros since the degree n is 4. And now, the end behaviors. The end behaviors describes how the graph is going to move as x goes from left to right. X goes to negative infinity, x goes to positive infinity, but what happens to the y value? That describes the end behaviors. As x approaches negative infinity, what happens to the value of y? And as x approaches positive infinity, what happens to the value of y? Provided in the lesson is a reference sheet. This is called In Summary, and it's available on your lesson outline. You need to have this available as you work through this lesson. You may also have it on the exam, because this gives you some very valuable information we will need in this lesson. Now, let's look at an example. Sample question. X squared plus 4x minus 5. And here we have the graph. Describe the characteristics of this function. First of all, the degree is 2. We know that because when we look at the variables, the largest exponent is 2. We know that 2 is an even number, so this would be an even degree. And if we look at the number in front, we know that it's positive 1. The number of possible turning points, 2 minus 1 is 1. The end behaviors, as x approaches negative infinity, y approaches positive infinity. As x approaches positive infinity, y also approaches positive infinity. The number of zeros, 2. We have 1 at x equal negative 5 and 1 at x equal 1. Now it's your turn to continue with lesson 12.